welcome to the language of trauma and loss. Modern society is filled with life-changing events, some as seemingly benign as moving to a new home, others as serious as the loss of a loved one or a sick family member. And with the advanced communications capability of TV news and the internet, global tragedies enter our lives almost the instant they happen. Adults can often weather what life throws at us and not miss a beat. But what about the children? How do they cope with and understand the setbacks that adults often take with a grain of salt? Our series intends to help give classroom teachers skills needed to recognize and help students cope with traumatic events in their lives. We'll do this by using a story that tells of an undefined, sad, or scary event that has taken place. Students will then use their language arts skills to determine things like plot, setting, and character. By talking about the story, it can become one vehicle for self-healing. We will then have a conversation with a professional who deals with childhood trauma and loss. Let's meet Dr. Bruce Perry. Dr. Perry is an internationally recognized authority on children in crisis.
We're putting a pretty big burden on our educators to be able to identify which children have trauma-related symptoms in the absence of the teacher knowing any history. Those are harder kids to sort of clearly identify and say, absolutely, these are trauma-related symptoms. The situations that are a little bit easier for the teachers are when a highly sort of public event takes place, like a parent is killed in a car accident or a sibling is killed in a car accident. Then the teacher can predictably know, listen, this is a terrible thing, it happened, the whole community knows about it, I know about it, and then we can make modifications to help the child get through it. The much more difficult group, as I think most educators will say, are those children who come from sort of disorganized families, a little bit of chaos, you don't know that much about, the parents aren't that involved in the school, you don't really know what is going on. You have suspicions, and you see behaviors that certainly look like trauma-related behaviors, but in the absence of a really good history, you can't be definitive. My recommendation in those cases is that if you treat these children as if these are trauma-related symptoms, you will end up having better results than if you don't.
In our series, young children will begin to learn about expressing through Bridget Bunny's story.
Bridget always had sweet dreams. She loved ordinary days, but one ordinary day, everything changed. Something very bad, sad, and scary happened. She felt awful and couldn't enjoy her days anymore. She had bad dreams that often kept her awake at night.
Middle school students might be friends with someone like the student you're about to meet, Erika, and you're likely to face the same kind of reluctance to writing.
There were rumors about her being a juvenile delinquent and being away at a home for girls. Midway through the 8th grade, a different Erika showed up for our English class. She had a tattoo, plenty of attitude, and an image to protect.
Okay, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. For our next assignment, I want you to write about your best friend.
I don't want to write about that. I don't want to write at all.
We all write in here, Erika, and we share what we write with those we trust.
Maybe you didn't hear me. I said I didn't want to do the assignment.
Erika, you need to learn.
In our final program, Erika reappears. This time, she's more troubled and defiant than she was in middle school. Once again, her teacher relies on a language arts assignment to help Erika face a trauma.
That's what's great about science and about life itself. It's all a series of predictable reactions to a stimulus.
Usually, her profanity was muffled enough for the teacher not to notice. But this time, Mr. V was staring her down. Erika meant him to hear.
Well, the detentions don't seem to be changing much. Why don't you give me 10 responses instead?
What do you mean?
I want you to write a list of 10 possible human responses to a bad situation. Make them understandable and logical for an original situation, but show how they're harmful if you repeat them for every stressful situation you face.
You will likely face students with similar crises, and here's some of what you need to know.
When you have a good idea, it's your brain. When you have a bad idea, it's your brain. When you move your fingers to write, it's your brain. When you feel sad, it's your brain. When you fall in love, it's your brain. Every aspect of public education is essentially brain-mediated. The brainstem is responsible for most of our simple regulatory functions: heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature. However, even though it's this very, very simple, relatively small part of the brain, the unique part about the brainstem is that it has all of these neurotransmitter systems that are involved in many, many, many other functions. The midbrain has neural systems that are involved in some aspects of sleep and wake, more complex physiological regulation, such as hunger and satiety. The midbrain also is beginning to have some fundamental motor regulation capabilities, sort of large motor functioning and so forth. Then there's the limbic system. The limbic system, I think everybody's sort of heard of as the emotional brain. It's part of the brain involved in reading nonverbal cues. It's a part of the brain that's involved in some of the manifestations of the threat response. It's the part of the brain that's involved in some aspects of short-term memory processing, and it has a tremendously important role in almost all human interactions because we are fundamentally relational creatures. Really, the most complex part of the brain is the cortex. And the cortex has multiple sub-areas, but broadly speaking, the cortex is involved in complex integration of all of the other information that's coming from the rest of the brain. And it helps us in perception. It helps us in more complex cognitive functioning like thinking and planning and dreaming and hoping. And that's your cortex when you do that. If a teacher understands how the threat response changes the way children think and act, that teacher will be much better equipped to deal with the tremendous challenges that we give teachers today. If we understand that some of those symptoms are from being in this arousal state, and we figure out things to decrease that arousal state and create an environment in the classroom that's safe, predictable, you're going to be well on your way towards your overall objectives of helping all the children learn cognitive content, become better self-regulated, become better citizens, and develop healthy relationships.
This series is designed to help you explore using language arts as a tool for identifying students who have experienced some type of trauma or loss. After watching the programs with your students, we hope you will be inspired to create a safe, comfortable classroom where children can express their true feelings through conversation, reading, writing, and drawing. Through our programs, we hope to help you and your students develop the language of trauma and loss.